Article 16. That he might be a prophet every way complete, it was necessary that he should be God, and also that he should be man. For unless he had been God, he could never have perfectly understood the will of God, and unless he had been man, he could not suitably have unfolded it in his own person to men. Note that Jesus Christ as God is wonderfully and clearly expressed in the Scriptures. He is called the mighty God in Isaiah 9:6. That Word was God, John 1:1. Christ who is God over all, Romans 9:5. God manifested in the flesh, 1 Timothy 3:16. The same is very God, 1 John 5:20. He is the first, Revelation 1:8. He gives being to all things, and without him was nothing made, John 1:2. He forgives sins, Matthew 9:6. He is before Abraham, John 8:58. He was and is and ever will be the same, Hebrews 13:8. He is always with his to the end of the world, Matthew 28:20, which could not be said of Jesus Christ if he were not God. And to the Son he saith, Thy throne, O God, is forever and ever, Hebrews 1:8, John 1:18. Also Christ is not only perfectly God, but perfectly man, made of a woman, Galatians 4:4, made of the seed of David, Romans 1:3, coming out of the loins of David, Acts 2:30, of Jesse and Judah, Acts 13:23. In that the children were partakers of flesh and blood, he himself likewise took part with them, Hebrews 2:14. He took not on him the nature of angels, but the seed of Abraham, verse 16. So that we are bone of his bone and flesh of his flesh, Ephesians 5:30. So that he sanctifieth, and they that are sanctified are all of one, Hebrews 2:11. See Acts 3:22, Deuteronomy 18:15, and Hebrews 1:1. Article 17. Concerning his priesthood, Christ having sanctified himself and appeared once to put away sin by that one offering of himself as a sacrifice for sin, by which he hath fully finished and suffered all things God required for the salvation of his elect, and removed all rites and shadows, etc., and is now entered within the veil into the Holy of Holies, which is the presence of God. Also he makes his people a spiritual house and holy priesthood, to offer up spiritual sacrifices acceptable to God through him. Neither does the Father accept, nor Christ offer to the Father any other worship or worshipers. Article 18. This priesthood was not legal or temporary, but according to the order of Melchizedek, and is stable and perfect, not for a time, but for forever, which is suitable to Jesus Christ, as to him that ever liveth. Christ was the priest, sacrifice, and altar. He was a priest according to both natures. He was a sacrifice according to his human nature, whence in Scripture it is attributed to his body, to his blood, yet the effectualness of this sacrifice did depend upon his divine nature. Therefore it is called the blood of God. He was the altar according to his divine nature. It belonged to the altar to sanctify that which is offered upon it, and so it ought to be of greater dignity than the sacrifice itself. Article 19. Concerning his kingly office, Christ being risen from the dead and ascended into heaven, and having all power in heaven and earth, he does spiritually govern his church, and does exercise his power over all, angels and men, good and bad, to the preservation and salvation of the elect, and to the overruling and destruction of his enemies. By this kingly power he applieth the benefits, virtue, and fruits of his prophecy and priesthood to his elect, subduing their sins, preserving and strengthening them in all their conflicts against Satan, the world, and the flesh, keeping their hearts in faith and filial fear by his Spirit. By this his mighty power he ruleth the vessels of wrath, using, limiting, and restraining them as it seems good to his infinite wisdom. Article 20. This his kingly power shall be more fully manifested when he shall come in glory to reign among his saints, when he shall put down all rule and authority under his feet, that the glory of the Father may be perfectly manifested in his Son, and the glory of the Father and the Son in all his members.